Something has clearly shifted in Washington. After months of tariff threats, visa crackdowns, trade offensives, and public insults aimed at India, the United States is suddenly sounding cautious, softer, almost apologetic. That probably explains the urgency behind US Secretary of State Marco Rubio's India visit. Officially, the trip is about strengthening ties. Unofficially, it is about repairing damage. Because over the last year, trust between Washington and New Delhi has taken repeated hits. Donald Trump claimed credit for stopping Operation Sindoor during India-Pakistan conflict. Washington pressured India over Russian oil purchases. The Trump administration tightened immigration rules affecting Indian professionals. An anti-India rhetoric inside America became increasingly visible online and in political discourse. Now with China looking stronger, Russia growing closer to Beijing, and America facing criticism across Middle East and Global South, Washington suddenly needs India again. And the upcoming Quad Summit makes that urgency even more important. The most uncomfortable moment of Rubio's trip came during a live press conference in Delhi. Rubio was directly asked about racist remarks targeting Indians and Indian Americans in the United States. The US Secretary of State looked visibly caught off guard. His response quickly went viral.
On lot of comments, racist comments coming from US. That of course.
Who made those comments?
We all have seen those comments, sir. We have seen endorsement of those comments.
Which
So it's well known, sir.
I don't know how to address that, but I'll take that very seriously about the comments. Look, I'm sure that there are people that have made comments online and other places, because every country in the world has stupid people. I'm sure there's stupid people here. There's stupid people in the United States that make dumb comments all the time. I don't know what else to tell you other than the United States is a very welcoming country. Our nation has been enriched by people who come to our country, have come from our country from all over the world, have become Americans, have assimilated into our way of life, and have contributed greatly.
But the controversy did not end there. The US State Department itself briefly shared Rubio's response on social media and then quietly deleted the post hours later after the exchange exploded online. The deletion only intensified the story, because many Indians immediately connected Rubio's comments to Donald Trump's own past rhetoric. Trump had previously amplified remarks calling India a hellhole. Indian immigrants were described in online commentary shared by Trump as gangsters with laptops. So suddenly, Washington found itself trying to reassure the very country sections of American political discourse had openly mocked. And Rubio understood the diplomatic risk immediately. Then came an even more extraordinary moment. Donald Trump himself intervened publicly during America's Independence Day celebrations in Delhi. A surprise phone call, live praise for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and an unusual emotional pitch toward India.
I just want to say hello to everybody. I love the Prime Minister. Modi is great. He's my friend. And I just want to say a very, very good evening to everybody. It's morning here and it's evening there. And I just want to say you're great. And we've never been closer to India. And India can count on me 100% and our country. If they ever need help, they know where to call. They call right here. We're doing well. We're setting records. We have a record economy, a record stock market. And anything India wants, they get. And I'm a big, big fan of Prime Minister Modi.
That is a dramatic reversal, because the same Trump had earlier called India a dead economy and slammed Indians as gangsters with laptops while attacking Delhi over Russian oil imports. Now suddenly Washington's tone has completely changed. Then came the most significant diplomatic moment of the visit, and the one that matters most for the bilateral relationship. On Russian oil purchase, Rubio performed a striking reversal. For over a year, Washington called India's purchase of Russian crude blood money, threatened punitive tariffs, mocked India as Kremlin's laundromat, and tied trade negotiations to demands that India cut its Russian energy imports. But now Rubio says the issue of Russian oil was never specifically about India. It was part of a broader effort to impose cost on Russia because of the Ukraine war. He said Washington wanted India to diversify toward American energy toward Venezuela. But the confrontation framing was gone. The demands were gone. What replaced them was an invitation, an energy pitch. Washington was no longer telling India what to stop buying. It was trying to sell India something instead. But another major source of tension still hangs over the relationship: immigration. For Indian professionals in America, the last year has been deeply unsettling. H-1B scrutiny intensified. Green card uncertainty expanded. Layoff shook the tech sector, and new immigration rules created widespread anxiety among Indian families. Rubio tried hard to calm those fears in Delhi. He insisted America's immigration reforms are not specifically targeted at India and described them as part of a broader overhaul after what he called a migration crisis in the US. But many Indians are no longer convinced, because the perception has already changed. For decades, America represented stability and opportunity for India's skilled middle class. Now many Indian professionals increasingly see unpredictability, and that damages America's long-term soft power inside India. But Rubio's visit is not fundamentally about racism or visas. It is about strategy. Washington understands it is losing strategic initiative globally. China is expanding influence across Asia, Africa, and the Gulf. Russia is deeply aligned with Beijing. Iran survived American and Israeli pressure, and the Indo-Pacific is rapidly becoming the defining geopolitical theater of the century. That is why the Quad suddenly matters again. The United States, India, Japan, and Australia are trying to revive strategic coordination across maritime security, critical minerals, technology, and supply chains. Unofficially, this is about building a balancing axis against China and Russia. But there is one major problem for Washington. Without India, the Quad simply cannot function as a credible geopolitical platform. India brings geography, India brings scale, India brings strategic autonomy, and India brings legitimacy in the global south. Washington finally understands that alliances alone cannot contain China. America needs India as an equal pillar, not merely a junior partner. But Delhi also delivered its own blunt response during Rubio's visit. India's first External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar made it absolutely clear that India will continue pursuing multi-alignment based entirely on national interest. On Russian oil, India did not soften its position. Jaishankar stressed that India requires multiple, affordable and dependable energy sources to protect its energy security amid global instability. That was diplomatic language carrying a very strategic message. India will not sacrifice its economy to satisfy Washington's geopolitical preferences. Jaishankar also defended India's ability to maintain strong ties simultaneously with America, Russia, Israel, and Iran. Not bloc politics, not Cold War binaries, not zero-sum alliances. India is pursuing leverage across all sides. That is the essence of India's modern foreign policy. And that brings us to the real story behind Rubio's visit: trust. Or more accurately, the growing lack of it. Delhi watched Washington threaten sanctions, pressure India on oil, strengthen military contacts with Pakistan, tighten immigration rules, and publicly insult India, only to suddenly reverse tone once geopolitical circumstances shifted. The inconsistency has consequences. India now sees America as increasingly transactional, useful, important, powerful, but also unpredictable. And that is why Delhi is approaching this new American outreach carefully. But India also understands something Washington is only now beginning to accept. America may currently need India more urgently than India needs America. That changes the balance inside the relationship, and Washington knows it. That is why Rubio is here, that is why Trump suddenly sounds conciliatory, and that is why America appears to be operating in full diplomatic damage control mode before the Quad summit. Because the geopolitical center of gravity is shifting rapidly toward Asia, toward the Indo-Pacific, and increasingly toward India.